I read 11 books between December, January, February, and in this video I'm going to be reviewing each of them on a scale of 1 to 5, and also giving you a brief spoiler-free breakdown of the plot and telling you whether you should actually read them. Okay, the first book I want to talk about here is Tinker, Tailor, Soldier, Spy. Tinker, Tailor, Soldier, Spy follows George Smiley, a retired operative within the British intelligence service who is called back in to help out with the intelligence service when they discover there is a high-end asset within the service who is a spy who's been feeding information to the Soviets. This book is very dense. I've seen the movie. The movie itself is very good. I enjoyed the film many years ago, and I've actually tried to read this book 3 or 4 times, but I haven't been able to get through it because it is very literary for a spy novel. A lot of times when you see a spy novel on the shelf in a bookshop now, you kind of expect it to be written like airport fiction, like a thriller, a page-turner, almost paced like a film, like a movie. This book is not that. It's very literary. John le Carré, a master, a grandmaster in the world of spy fiction, the godfather of the entire genre, is not writing stories in the same modern context. He's somebody who did have intelligence experience. That's kind of how he transitioned into writing all these George Smiley novels. There are an abundance of them. There's a whole series of them. I think his sons may have actually continued the series thereafter. But this particular book is excellent. If I had to give it a review on a scale of 1 to 5, I ended up giving it a 4. It's one of the better books I read over the last couple months. Not the best book I've read, but certainly up there. Despite how dense it is, despite how difficult it was to get through, I felt accomplished having finished it because the story itself is really rich and the relationships in this book are so fulfilling, so rewarding to read through, and to see how these people feel so lived in, and to experience their world, and to experience the world weariness of George Smiley and those within his vector, and to see the cost, the human cost of being a spy and being within the intelligence service. It all comes across really well. It all is really enthralling, and it did feel like an accomplishment when I did finish this book. Definitely worth checking out if you aren't spy fiction. If you are somebody who has been, putting off trying out the le Carré novels, check this one out, push past some of the denser writing, and get it done, get it finished, and join me on the other side. Next up, the best book I read of the last couple months was actually I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jennette McCurdy. This is a memoir that chronicles Jennette McCurdy's rise to fame from sort of an obscure youth to being the star of the co-star of iCarly to having her own show, Sam and Cat, that she subsequently started. And it's all about sort of the behind-the-scenes relationship between herself and her mother, and the toxic relationship that she had with her mother as she grew up, as she became one of these showbiz kids. I gave this book a 4.5 out of 5. It stuck with me a lot more than any of the other books I read throughout this period. The book is so raw, so personal, so funny at times. This book is kind of the gold standard to me in the world of memoir right now. There are a lot of bad memoirs out there. A lot of people trying to give books their voice but not succeeding in the same way McCurdy is. She's so honest here, so funny. And I say so honest, but she's just forthcoming about her life and her feelings, both in how she's dealing with the people around her, like her professional environment, working in TV, as well as her own mother, and in detailing the complicated relationship she had with her mother as her mother gets sick with cancer and ultimately does succumb and pass away. So very interesting book, very easy read, quick read. If you are somebody who just looking to breeze through something pretty quick in a couple days and a couple weeks, this could be one for you to pick up. The audiobook I think is also very good. I've heard she reads it, so maybe worth looking into as well. Next up, Running on Empty by Jonas Webb. This is a book about childhood emotional neglect. It's not about what happened to you and sort of the childhood trauma and unpacking that. It's about what you maybe didn't receive in your relationship from your parents. It's a very insightful book. It wasn't something that I read maybe to like heal myself or sort of some introspective thing, but I am a parent. But I was interested to learn what I could do, best practices to try to make sure that when I'm raising my children, I try to instill in them values and lessons and the things that they need to be well-adjusted adults. Obviously, there's a lot of books on this concept out there, but this one was oft recommended to me because I think it's insightful into the idea that sometimes we're neglecting our children's needs and our own needs are neglected by our parents unintentionally, and I wanted to avoid that to the extent possible. It's all about emotional validation, it's about connection, it's about why many successful adults feel disconnected or numb within their lives. It's not sort of a flashy read that you'll see in an airport bookstore, but it is insightful if you are looking for something like that. I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars. Next up, Dungeon Crawler Carl. Dungeon Crawler Carl is the hotness on the internet. Everyone loves this book. Everyone recommends this book. It is a lit RPG, which is ostensibly an RPG, like video game RPG, come to life in the form of this novel. A lot of people listen to the audiobook, but it's all about a human being who lives on Earth, and he's like a former Marine, and the world kind of ends, and he's pulled into this elaborate reality show contest-like thing where the entire galaxy watches human beings delve further into a dungeon-like world and compete to be the sole survivor of this world. It is very interesting. The first book basically takes you through the first 2 levels. It doesn't get too deep into the actual story. There is a resolution, there is an actual plot here, but it's a very interesting world to kind of jump into. It's also a very quick read. It's not one of those denser novels. It's, I mean, a far cry from the world of Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, but it was one of the more enjoyable reads I've had in a long time. It's very fun. It's just a fun and enjoyable book to read in a way that I think a lot of books kind of lose sight of. They lose sight of the idea that this is supposed to be an enjoyable experience. It feels like something that if I was on vacation, I could rip through a couple of these. The main character, Carl, ends up pairing up with his pet cat who gets sentience and can speak to him, Princess Donut. And it's very comical. It's much funnier and better put together to me than a book like Ready Player One, where I was frequently asking myself whether the author had ever spoken to a woman because it was very cringe the way that they interacted. Whereas there are cringe moments in Dungeon Crawler Carl, they're often played for laughs. They're intentionally cringe, and they are much fewer and farther between than something like Ready Player One. This is an excellent nerd book. If you're somebody who's just kind of looking to get into reading, it's an excellent recommendation for anyone who's kind of into a lot of the fantasy elements, RPGs, video games, that kind of stuff. I gave Dungeon Crawler Carl a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Next up, The League by John Eisenberg. This is a book about the formation of the NFL as we know it. I'm a huge football fan. This book tells the story of the 5 franchises that kind of put it all together. The owners themselves, the rivals who helped establish the league and take it from sort of an amateur pro-am kind of thing to the behemoth of sports that it is now, the worldwide leader in some ways of sports entertainment. It makes it sound like the WWE, but it did borrow a lot of those elements of professional wrestling as it grew in popularity. It talks about the history of these businesses, the Bears, the Packers, the Steelers, how some of these owners were much better and more forward-thinking than others, the elements of personal relationships that allow these businesses, these teams, these franchises to stay afloat in times where nobody cared about the NFL. It was at best the 3rd or 4th most popular sport in America, behind college football where they were wearing leather helmets. And to see it rise to what it is today was very interesting and insightful, and the stories and the characters within this book were something that you just can't replicate. Big, rich weirdos who were football sickos, and that's what allowed the league to grow into what it is today. I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars. Next up, I read There Is No Ethan by Anna Akbari. This is a true crime nonfiction book by a woman who was scammed by a gentleman named Ethan, quote unquote, a gentleman named Ethan. It is all about this catfishing scam where 3 women were taken by this guy. Ultimately, it's revealed to be an even bigger scam. I am someone who's really into the world of sort of catfishing and true crime stuff, so just the premise itself really intrigued me. I dove into this one. I've listened to a lot of podcasts that cover topics like this and found them fascinating. There's a documentary on Netflix in particular recently that I watched that just blew my mind with the depths to which these catfishing scams go. And now this book is all about this one woman's experience, and she subsequently ropes in 2 other women who were being scammed by this character, this Ethan. I gave this one 2.5 stars out of 5. I enjoyed the ride. I enjoyed the book itself. But what I didn't enjoy was just how much time is spent on Miss Akbari and her relationship to this guy, like buying into the idea that this guy is a real person. I became frustrated at a certain point because I knew where this was going. I knew this guy was a scammer, and I became frustrated, like wanting to scream through the book, like, just figure it out. This guy is not real. And it's interesting in that she's kind of insightful into what she's experiencing. She knows that this is nonsensical. She knows that she should get out now, but she just cannot pull away. And just how many of the characters within this book feel the same way, and they can't pull away from this very compelling character. The reveal of who is behind this Ethan character is unto itself quite something. Very enjoyable, very worthwhile when you get there, but you do have to endure some parts that I did not enjoy nearly as much. So I gave this one 2.5 stars. Worth checking out if you are interested in true crime or into catfishing stories. Next up, another bit of nonfiction. Everything is Tuberculosis by John Green. This book is a nonfiction work where John Green takes a disease we think belongs to the past in tuberculosis and explains how tuberculosis is still in the modern world, how it still exists, what factors allow it to still exist and allow it to still predominate major areas of the world where the monetary resources just aren't there. It's very insightful into sort of how public health works, and it is something that doesn't feel academic. It feels like you are meeting characters that make you care about this issue. And I think that John Green does a really excellent job of bringing you characters, real people who you can latch onto, and allowing this book book to present a more compelling view into what could be an eye-glossing over, eye-rolling topic to a lot of people. Oh, they hear public health. Oh, I know, there's inequities. Those are the kind of things that it's difficult to buy into for some people, but when you see these characters, you see the people that John Green is talking to, the people who are losing their lives to this disease in 2024, it's impossible not to feel this book and feel for the characters who were involved. Despite all that, you know, it's not my favorite John Green book. I did end up giving it a 3 out of 5. Next up, Rammer, Jammer, Yellow Hammer. This one's been on my list for a long time. It is a memoir, another nonfiction book by Warren St. John, who was a writer for the New York Times. He's from Alabama. He ends up going down to Alabama in the late 90s to travel around for a full season in an RV following the Alabama Crimson Tide football team around the country, following their superfans, getting to know these superfans, getting to know the ticket vendors who sell tickets to these games. The characters in this book, again, it's nonfiction, but the real people who are involved in the world of Alabama Crimson Tide super fandom are incredible. I gave this book a 4 out of 5. I could have given it a 4.5. First of all, Warren St. John, very excellent writer. The prose is so good. It moves the story along really well. His insight into the world of Alabama football, he's somebody who came from Alabama, grew up living and dying by the team, moves to New York City, and then he comes back to this team. He's dealing with these super fans as kind of an outsider, and his perspective is very interesting. The people that he ropes in, the phrases, the turns of phrases that these Alabamians sort of just fluidly say are incredible. They're just, I can't even describe it to you. You need to read it for yourself. If you're somebody who likes football, if you're somebody who is interested in weird, strange characters, you gotta check out Rammer, Jammer, Yellow Hammer. Next up, The Year of Magical Thinking by Joan Didion. This is a nonfiction memoir as well. It's a book about grief and loss. After the sudden loss of her husband, and while her daughter is lying critically ill in a hospital, Joan Didion documents her entire first year of grief. I think maybe this book wasn't for me right now. I've heard nothing but excellent things about this book. I ultimately DNF'd this book. I gave it a 2 out of 5. I felt like Joan Didion, I'm sure, is an excellent writer. The prose itself is beautiful. But it did feel to me like it was a very literary memoir, and the world that she's experiencing, her husband's a writer, she's a writer, there is this unique sort of microcosm of the world where people exist in these New York communities where they're all writers, they're all creatives. It just felt very remote to me. And even though it's all about grief, I felt like I couldn't connect to Joan Didion, and that made me DNF this book. I hope to come back to this one in a number of years. Unfortunately, I know that grief lies ahead for anyone in this life. And I can see how, if I was dealing with something like that, this book could connect to me a little bit more. But right now, I had to DNF it. I ended up giving it a 2 out of 5. But it feels unfair to really give it a full rating because I didn't finish the book. I got pretty deep into it and ultimately decided it just wasn't for me. Next up, the behemoth of the bunch, The Stand by Stephen King. This book is unbelievably long. It's 1,200 pages, the longest book I've read in some time. It took me quite a while. It's all about a super flu that wipes out 97% or 99.7% of the world's population, and the survivors and this almost biblical battle between good and evil. This evil character, Randall Flagg, and his counterpoint in this sort of touched by God woman, Mother Abigail, who is this elderly African-American woman who's like 110 years old, who has been put on earth essentially to amass a following who could then defeat this force of evil in the post-apocalyptic world. It's not the typical Stephen King book. There are scary, frightening sections, but it's not a horror book. It's really more of an end-of-world fiction story. It's a forefather in that genre. I think a lot of other apocalyptic fiction has taken and borrowed from this book. It seems particularly relevant in the post-COVID world in terms of describing how the world falls and how society tries to rebuild itself after a global pandemic. Obviously, we didn't experience a 99.7% of the world dying event, but still, it feels as relevant as ever. Now, I gave this book 3.5 stars. Again, it's really long. It's exceptionally long. It's 1,200 pages. It's essentially 3 books. And I like 2 of them. I like the first third where the world is ending. I like the final third where they're going to face off with Randall Flagg. But there's a big slop in the middle, a lot of pages, where essentially they're trying to rebuild society in Boulder, Colorado. And there's a lot of talk like local politics and fixing local elections and the Constitution and reestablishing it. And I do not care Mr. King, I don't care about them reestablishing the Constitution in Boulder, Colorado. It just was not for me. I mean, I could be roped into that kind of stuff, but it's like the worst seasons of The Walking Dead where they're in Alexandria and you're just like, why are you guys like rebuilding the power grid? I want you to kill some zombies. So go kill zombies, stop rebuilding the power grid. There's a whole 400-page book within this book about rebuilding the power grid. Not for me, okay? Finally, the last book on my list, Recursion by Blake Crouch. This is kind of like a Christopher Nolan-esque novel. It's all about time travel and rewriting our histories, and there's a detective whose daughter passes away tragically, and he gets roped into this paranoid scheme that's set up by the scientist to go back into history and change our past. And all of a sudden there are these recursion events where different timelines of history are all crashing into each other. It feels definitely something that's in conversation with a lot of what we've seen from like modern storytelling between the Marvel stories and the multiverse events between Endgame and Infinity War and going back in time and rewriting history. These themes are always kind of relevant, right? These time travel themes and something that people always come up with. Blake Crouch is an author who always has stood out to me as somebody who writes in a very modern style. He writes in this present tense, very gripping, movie-like style. His books are very good. I think Dark Matter in particular is a standout to me. I also read his Wayward Pine series that was turned into a great television show a number of years back. But that's another gripping, weird, creepy, Lynchian, Twin Peaks obviously influenced story. And Blake Crouch does so much of that well. This one wasn't great to me. I gave it 3 stars. It felt like it didn't reach the highs of some of his other works to me, and it just didn't, again, connect to me. I got kind of, my eyes glazed over a bit as we get a little deeper into the story, and the science fiction of it all kind of came all together. I think ultimately my conclusion with a lot of science fiction storytelling is like, I don't care that much about the philosophical elements of science fiction to the point like I'm willing to ride it out for 150 pages exploring all of that. I mean, that's a little bit boring to me. There's a lot of genre stuff here, like mystery, detective storytelling, spy, paranoid thriller, and that's where I think Crouch really excels as an author. His influence are very apparent, like he's being influenced by all those things I said before, Lynchian. There's some detective storytelling stuff here, this pulpy storytelling that he really nails. But when it gets into the science fiction, really like, oh, recursion events, time travel, you mesh the timelines, like, I don't care. I'm burnt out from that. I watched Avengers Endgame. I watched the Doctor Strange movie where there's a bunch of multiverses. I don't care, and I think that it's a tired concept to me, despite how much time I have for Blake Crouch. So for all those reasons, I gave it 3 stars out of 5. Still worth checking out if you like science fiction, though. Still worth checking out if you like Blake Crouch. Maybe it's more for you than it was for me. So that does it for me here. Be sure to subscribe to the channel for more book recommendations. Until later, I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye now.